Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dudes of all teenagers. If you recognize that reference, good for you. If you don't recognize that reference, even better. You're probably not chronically online like I am. Today, we're here to talk about something that matters quite a lot to me. And that's kind of the idea of this channel is if it matters to me and I don't want to have to write down the reasons why, or I don't want to be worried about what it might do to my main channel simply for algorithmic reasons, that's what this channel's for. This is an extremely important topic to me. I've been waiting to talk about this for a long time and we're finally here. If, like me, you are a massive fan of Batman and have been very interested in Batman news that's been going on over the last few years, if your childhood was influenced irreparably for the better by Batman the Animated Series and the DC Animated Universe, this should be probably the most important thing that you could think of. This August, we are receiving a show I have been dreading to talk about. Batman the Caped Crusader, or I guess it's Batman Caped Crusader, instead of just the Caped Crusader. I don't know why you wouldn't put the in front of it, because that's a moniker of him. It's not just generally a title that you can apply to anybody. It's not an action that he takes. He is the Caped Crusader. But that's not the problem I have with this show. That's not even close to the problem that I have with this show. We're here to talk about a show that we have been waiting for since 2020. Back during the early years of all of the nonsense that's been going on, we received the DC Fandome, and it was terrible.
There is so much that I couldn't possibly do this on my own. So, of course, we put together a pretty super team of co-hosts, as well as celebrity hosts that you're going to get to hang out with all day.
It was horrendous. The DC Fandome was one of the dumbest things that I've ever seen. It was truly just terrible. The presentation was off. The people presenting it didn't seem genuine. This shouldn't be a massive surprise. It was an overly developed corporate product, DC Fandome. But one thing that we did get that a lot of people like myself were surprised by was Batman the Caped Crusader. The first images we saw of this looked like the most interesting thing in the world, you know? You get the DC Animated Universe art style, you know, the Bruce Timm sort of animation for things. It's Batman, it's Gotham, it's grittier, it's darker, and then the first thing that we hear is all of this nonsense.
What this does is it gives us the opportunity to say, okay, well, the versions of Joker and Catwoman and Penguin, those versions that we did on Batman the Animated Series were really great and iconic. But there's lots of different ways we can take those characters that we hope will be just as iconic and just as powerful. The way we deal with the characters is going to be quite a bit more modern in terms of inclusivity, representation, things like that.
And if, like me, you understand why this is a bad thing, thank you very much for watching. Consider leaving a like and commenting and subscribing to this channel, because this is the very first video I'm putting up here. If you don't understand why this is a bad thing, let me go ahead and break it down for you. To start off, because I know so many people are going to be concerned when I talk about this, this is by no means a matter of hatred for individuals who might fall into this category, or any of these categories in general. It's very specifically what this term and these requirements mean for media at large. Over the last, I would say, 9 years, but if we want to be very hyper-specific, over the last 5 years, we have had movie after movie after movie after movie, show after show after show after show that have always presented diverse this, inclusion that, audience this, you know, modern thing that, basically all just to say this product is designed to push this one specific political or social perspective. And our goal with making this was to present this idea, not inherently to make a good product. I'm not going to sit here and say it's impossible for a very politically charged project to create a good piece of media. However, if I were to run the numbers, if I were a betting man, I would say the worst thing you could possibly do for a piece of media is to present it and advertise it as being all of these separate categories, as being representative of an audience that, frankly, is not the core audience. The core audience that is interested in this show, that is interested In any DC project or any Marvel or Star Wars project, the core audience for that is the same core audience that it's always been. The same core audience that it's been since 1977 or since 1939 or 38 if we're talking Superman, but this is Batman. We're talking Batman today. It's the exact same audience it's always been. People who enjoy superheroes. No matter what your background is, no matter what your economic status is, no matter where your family's from, it's people who enjoy heroes. Doesn't matter how you live your personal life, because it's never mattered how you live your personal life. What matters is that you care about these characters, and more importantly, you care about whether or not these characters are treated well. It's the same audience it's always been. It's the same audience that was concerned about Michael Keaton becoming Batman for the 1989 movie. It's the same audience that was very upset when Tim Burton decided we're going to have Batman kill people and use guns in our movies, even if he's not holding the gun himself. It's the same audience that was upset with the nipples on the Batsuit. It's the same audience that was upset with Schumacher's overly comical look on Batman, which was reflecting a very 1950s aesthetic, however, was not at all what the audience was looking for. It's the same audience that was concerned with all of the potential projects and all of the almost things that happened with DC. It's the same audience that fell in love with Batman the Animated Series, Superman the Animated Series, Static Shock, which was awesome and I wish we had more seasons of, Zeta Project, which died too soon, Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, Batman Beyond, of course, something we should have had a movie of many years ago, let alone within the last couple of years. It's the same audience it's always been. People from all walks of life who simply care about these products. Now, why am I making such a big deal out of this? Because, Christian, all we have is a single minute and 56 seconds worth of trailer to tell us what this show's going to be about, and a couple of little news spots here and there from online publications. We don't have anything concrete about what this show's going to be. We've got a few images from a couple months ago, but that's it. Why are you so worried about this? When the producers of the show say this,
the way we deal with the characters is going to be quite a bit more modern in terms of inclusivity, representation, things like that.
What they are telling you is that this is not created for the people who care about this project. This is not created for the same people who grew up with, currently live and breathe, and will continue to praise the previous works. This is created for an audience that doesn't yet exist. This is created to attempt to bring in. This is created to attempt to bring in an audience that already could not care less about this project. This is created with the goal of pushing out the old fans, no matter what the old fans believe, for the sake of new fans who do not already care about this. It is the same thing that we have seen very recently with Star Wars Acolyte, or previously on that with every Star Wars show that wasn't Andor. And even then, Andor gets a terrible rap because it's sandwiched in between crap pieces of bread. It's the same thing that we've seen with Marvel since 2019. It's the same thing that we will continue to see. Originally, this project was supposed to be on HBO Max. The moment that David Zaslav walked in and realized there's no way that this is going to make us money, it was cut. It was shopped around to Netflix for a little bit. Eventually, it was picked up by Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime, known for their great choices of superhero media and for their amazing adaptations of source material. This is not looking like it's going to be a great idea. All right, this is, oh boy, I'm concerned about this. I'm extremely concerned about this. And if we just want to talk about the trailer, here's my concerns with the trailer. First and foremost, why are we using the animation style of Batman and Harley Quinn or the Justice League versus the Fatal Five? Why aren't we going back to Justice League and Justice League Unlimited art style? Why aren't we going back to an art style that seemed a little less refined? Sure, probably a portion of that is because it's now done all digitally, but why do the characters seem softer? The way they're drawn just seems less refined. The way that they walk, the way that they move, it just doesn't really match up. And this was a problem back with Harley Quinn, with Batman and Harley Quinn, with Justice League versus Fatal 5. It's been a problem for a while, and I don't know why more people aren't concerned about that. Second, I have no qualms with the actors and actresses who are portraying the characters in this show. My concern comes with the fact that the producers told us this show is set in the 1940s.
Definitely heavy on the German expressionism / film noir kind of styling, set in the kind of timeless 40s world. If anything, we're probably going to lean into that even more in terms of authentic clothes and hairstyles and hats and vehicles and architecture.
Where do you get a black police commissioner in the 1940s? Where on the entire eastern seaboard of the United States would there have been a black police commissioner in the 1940s? Where would there have been an Asian psychiatrist in the 1940s on the eastern seaboard of the United States? The 1940s, mind you, by which I mean 1940 to 1949, by which I mean World War II and the start of the Korean War. Where would you have had an Asian psychiatrist in the United States on the eastern seaboard in the 1940s? If we want to continue pushing the narrative, if we want to continue to tell stories surrounding the narrative of all of the istophobic ideologies, how in the world anyone in New Jersey have appointed a black police commissioner in the 1940s? And how are there women cops performing detective duties in the 1940s? How are these things the case? Why are these things the case? The difference with Batman the Animated Series and the DC Animated Universe as a whole is they were set in the current day of the time, 1992, 1997 for Superman and onwards. The architecture, art style, tech style was more of a mixture of the 40s and 50s. But the timeline was still modern, which means all of the social movements that happened within that 50-year gap happened. Which means, okay, I can understand why women were on the police force. I can see why Detective Montoya would have been, one, an amazing character, and two, an important figure within the GCPD. I can see where X, Y, or Z social change would have come in because it was set in the 90s, not the 40s. But this show is supposed to be set in the 40s with the art and architecture of the 40s. And you can't set a show in the 40s and say that everything acts like it's the 90s or the 2000s or the 10s or 20s, because that's simply not how that works. There will be the argument of, but this is a cartoon, why are you upset about this? To which I respond, but this is a cartoon, why do you have to do these things? Why do you have to put these messages in? If this is a cartoon, if this is just an animated series, if this is not to be taken seriously, why do you have to put in all these important messages that you yourself, by which I don't mean my audience, of course, my audience, you guys are great, thank you for watching, by which I mean the creators of the show, you, the creators of the show, why do you have to put all these things into the show? Now, on a more important level, talking purely story quality, my assumption is that we're going to get something about the quality of Harley and Ivy, or rather, about the quality of Batman and Harley, which is to say, pretty crap. But that's exactly what I expect. Why? The writing team behind Batman the Animated Series is not involved in this show, for a multitude of reasons. Paul Dini's not involved in this show. He was really the major force behind the writing of the animated series, of Superman, of New Batman Adventures, of all the DC Animated Universe. He was kind of the head for the longest time of this. Alan Burnett is not involved in this. The only, from the outset, the only creative head from Batman the Animated Series still involved in this show.
But spring break will be coming up soon, and I'll be back in Gotham for 2 whole weeks. Won't that be nice?
Yes. We'll all be happy to see you.
Don't drag me into this.
And let's not forget when he has complete creative control and makes his own project. This is not a good idea. This show was never a good idea. From the outset, they told you what this was going to be. You knew exactly how this was going to go, and anybody who was paying attention at the time, or who is paying attention now, recognizes what this is going to be. And I'm still going to keep talking about it. From the time it starts to the time it ends, I'm going to be talking about this show because it matters to me. Because this was my childhood. The first thing I remember, my oldest memory, was sitting there and watching Batman the Animated Series. On Leather Wings. Very first episode ever produced. Not the first that was released in order, but that's a different discussion. The first episode ever produced, and you can tell, because on the old DVDs, you could tell the difference between the animation quality. There's no project, there's no character, there's no other force in the universe that has been as impactful to me. This is just a horrendous idea of a project. There's really no two ways about it. Is there a chance? Is there a snowball's chance in hell that this is a good show? Sure, of course there is. I'm not going to say it's impossible for this to be a good project. But is it likely? By no means. It is by no means likely. Just simply look at the evidence at hand. Batman and Harley Quinn, Justice League vs. the Fatal Five, every Marvel show, every Star Wars show, every single superhero project within the last 9 years has been a coin toss as to whether or not it's going to be good. Some of them have succeeded. I can think of two in particular that have succeeded, even though one of them was not as big of a success as it needed to be. But every other one of them has continued to decline in quality. This is a show that Warner Brothers did not want to put on their own platform. This is a show produced by J.J. Abrams, responsible for these projects. And let's not forget...
What'd you do?
I bypassed the compressor.
Where's Ben? Where the fuck is Ben?
Ray Skywalker.
This is a show created for the sole purpose of presenting a message to you and telling you this is the truth and force-feeding you an ideology. If it weren't, then the first things we would have heard about it would have not been this statement.
The way we deal with the characters is going to be quite a bit more modern in terms of inclusivity, representation, things like that.
There's really nothing else to say about it. If we're talking just what we can tell from the trailer, I have nothing against the voice actors. I think Batman should sound a little bit more interested in what he's doing. I think the music has nothing to do whatsoever with the setting or the time or the period or the character at all. And I'm confused as to why and how you would have certain characters in certain positions of authority in the 1940s. Also, if Harley Quinn is a gymnast, how does she do gymnastics? But it shouldn't surprise me that she's in this show that is, after all, Paul Dini's baby, and he will do anything within his power to make her the most important character in the entire project. That's about all I have to say about this topic. I don't know how often videos are going to be releasing here outside of if Batman the Caped Crusader ends up being a weekly release show. I'm going to be talking about every single episode as it releases. If it isn't a weekly release show and they just shove it all onto the platform all at once, first and foremost, that should tell you a lot about what they think about their own show. And second, I'll still be doing episodic content. I'll probably put a little bit more thought and editing into it then. But that's all we've got for now. Thank you all so much for watching. This has been a very, very intense first video for this channel for me, and this is not how I expected the first video on this channel to go, although, of all the other options, this is pretty on brand for me. So, once more, thank you all for watching. If you have enjoyed what you've seen, consider leaving a like, commenting, and subscribing. If you haven't enjoyed, thank you very much for watching anyway. That says a lot about your character, and I'm very thankful that you would be willing to sit here for however long this video's been and watch something that you disagree with. Means the world to me. Whether or not you've enjoyed, I'll see you guys next time, approximately the same bat time, same bat channel. Have a good one.